Hey everybody, Jeremy here from Nobot Studios. Welcome to another Grit Fantasy RPG video. Today's topic will be the Monster Builder. Now, the Monster Builder is the fourth and final builder in the book. It's a little bit more advanced, so those who are new to the game or new GMs, this may be something good for you to watch, but not necessarily something you need to use right away, because this is creating a custom monster from scratch. If you have watched my other videos, you've seen the encounter builder, and there is an option pardon me, to have a custom monster as part of the encounter that you roll up. So what the monster builder does is basically goes through some steps to create absolutely unique monster that you can use in your game. I figured that the first thing I should do is just show you a range of monsters that are already in the book to give you an idea of kind of the power level that you could see through these. That way, when you're going through this monster builder, you're going to understand kind of, what's a weak monster, what's a more strong monster or mid-level monster. What kind of features should I be expecting here? What kind of features should I choose? So I am going to, once again, on the left-hand side, I have the rule book pulled up. I am going to go to the Goblin. And this is a good example of a weak monster. This would be considered a mook. If you watched my last video, this is, it's a weak creature that is just basically a one-hit and done kind of thing. So their stat block is -2, 1, 1. So they have -2 every time they roll the d12 die. They have 1 grit, and they have 1 turn per round. Okay. They are small, sneaky, greedy, and mischievous, as you might expect. So, like all the monsters in this book, or most all monsters, they have 3 features. So the first one is jagged weapons. So basically when they roll a 1 or a 2, it basically breaks their weapon, but it does damage. It does 1 damage to their opponent. They have natural stealth, which just makes them difficult to spot when they're hiding, and also makes it easy for them to hide just whenever they want. Another feature too is their misleading laughter. So characters will have to make a hard insight roll to kind of discern if they're where they are, because they may tend to make you feel that there's more of them around you, or they're in different locations that they are. So this is probably a good the best example of the weakest character or monster in the book. So then I want to move to the orc, which is a little bit of a step up. And you could see that this is already kind of mimicking the goon. It's a little bit stronger, but it has a stat block of +1, 5, 1. So it's going to be a little bit more durable, and it's going to shell out a little bit more damage. So these will probably take a couple hits, maybe. Unless focus dice are used, of course, from the characters. But they're ugly, fierce, routing, and violent. Their savage weapons are basically just giving them intimidation bonuses. But their war shield is what makes them strong, because basically they can do just what a character does. They could sacrifice their shield to negate 1 attack. So when a character attacks them, and if it's going to be lethal, they can just use up that war shield, and that attack is no more. Now, they don't have soak, because monsters do not have armor or soak. And that's something I want to emphasize. That is just extra work that you don't need to do as a GM. And I'll go over that later, I think, in some other videos, like GM-related videos. The other one and final feature is more orcs. So that's just a war cry that brings in D4 additional orcs. So, and then kind of a step up from that, I think would be the slime. And another thing about the orc, you could, if you want a captain of the orc group, you could give that captain like 10 grit instead of 5, and they'd be just a little bit more durable. Okay, so the slime, +1, 10, 1. So 10 is still on the average side, but a little on the tougher side, of average. So they're amorphous, oozing, hungry, and sticky. So they have climbing, which means they could climb over any surface, really. They have a drop attack, which, falls down upon their prey, and then just a corrosive touch, which does ongoing damage. So that's an example of kind of mid to upper level monster. And then the fourth one that I wanted to go over is the most powerful monster in the book. And that is the wrong page. Getting ahead of myself. Okay, the Iron Draconus. So that's a +4, 42 stat block. Now, that's pretty tough. So every time they roll a d12, it's a +4. They have 40 grit, and they have 2 turns per round. And I'll kind of show you very soon here how deadly that can be. So they have Armored Fortitude, which basically makes them immune to pretty much anything except for an artifact weapon. And then static range attacks against them are hard, which means they're not going to do as much damage. They can take long strides, which means their movement is basically doubled. So you can't get away from them very easily. Their terrible claws basically destroy armor or a shield each time they hit. The ratcheting tail, they can stretch out to long distance range and attack multiple opponents in a line, and that also knocks them prone. There's the searing bite, which in addition to damage from the melee attack, they do 2 extra damage for d4 rounds. So that could be another 8 damage that a character takes from that. Last is the Molten Breath, which is basically a short-range attack, which is just like a cone of flame and molten stuff. And that does also 2 damage for d4 rounds to everybody within that space, in addition to the damage they did. Okay. So you can see this can be a formidable foe. Now, that 2 turns per round thing, let's say a character gets into melee with them and this thing attacks the character with terrible claws. Okay. If the character survives that and takes damage, let's say, their armor or shield is destroyed, which makes them easier to hit or easier to damage. And then the monster gets a second attack at +4 roll. So you can see how this creature could probably take out a character per round if things go right with the rolls. Of course, the characters have abilities, they have artifacts, and they have focus dice. So, and the Iron Draconus does not have focus dice, at least. So I wanted to show you that, just to show you that range of what's available for the monsters. And then now I'm going to go into the monster builder proper. The screen that I showed you before, or the page I showed you before, rather. So this is the monster builder. I'm just going to read it off here real quick. Use this builder to create a custom monster or to modify a pre-existing one. So with that, you could take any of the common monsters, let's say goblins, orcs, and things that veteran players would be familiar with and could be able to maybe possibly anticipate abilities and stuff. You can completely change those monsters' abilities and tags and stuff and put out a troll that doesn't really operate like a troll. So it'll keep them guessing. It's a really cool thing to do. Oh, wait. Okay. For a random monster, follow these 3 steps. Roll 4d20 for narrative tags and roll 1 to 3d20 for features, choosing from the common or rare lists as you see fit. To create a boss monster, use the +3, 22 stat block and roll to 5 features. So for most monsters, you're going to have 3 features. I would say 1 to 3. But 3 is just kind of the standard that I did. 1 is going to be certainly easier to manage. So, especially for one that like a lower powered monster. Okay, and so I'm going to just go through these 3 steps. You have the stat block, a D12 roll, and that gives you a range of stat blocks there, and you can see that it kind of follows that Mook-Goon boss thing. So the first one is a -3, 1, 1. Number 4 is 0, 5, 1, which is a goon. And then +3, 22 is a boss. So, and there's a range between that. I did consider doing a D20 chart for this and kind of decided not to. I wanted to keep it concise. And you can always pick from this or modify these things as you see fit. Second one is narrative tags. This is just going to give you 4 narrative tags to work with, and this can be helpful if you're picking the features to kind of, you get that idea of what these things are like, and then the features can match what you've rolled for the narrative tags. Of course, you can't always roll features randomly too. So there are 2 tables of features. First one is the common. These are the more lower powered ones. Some of them are still pretty tough. And then there's the rare features, which are definitely upper level, more powerful abilities. Okay. So I thought I would just, like the other videos, I think I'm just going to roll a random monster out and we'll see how this thing goes. Okay, so first one is a stat block. I rolled a 6. So we have a 0, 10, 1 creature. It's kind of mid-level. Then I'm going to do narrative tags. I'm going to do a D20 in conjunction with a D4. Got a 15, 2. Got tentacled. Second one. 13, 1. Lumbering. Third one. 19, 2. Nocturnal. And 12, 4. Tiny. So we got these tiny, lumbering, tentacled, nocturnal creatures. Kind of interesting that a tiny creature has a 10 grit, Okay, so I'm going to roll 3 features out. I think I'm going to do 2 common and 1 rare. That's kind of how I do it a lot of times. Or sometimes what I'll do is I'll roll a d20 and I'll, if I rolled like say an 8, I would check to see what 8 means for a common and what 8 is for a rare feature. So let's do the first 2 here in the common table. So we've got a quill cloud. And that is a ranged attack. All targets in short range radius take d4 damage. Armor offers no protection, but shields offer soak. And then we have 5. We have claws and fangs, which is a pretty common one. This is a melee attack. Rolls a 12 plus, deal an extra 1 unsoakable damage for d4 rounds due to bleeding. So feel free to modify these 2. Like if you just want claws and fangs to be a melee attack with no extra stuff, you could do that too. All right, and let's do a rare one just for fun. I would probably just keep it, knowing it's a, what do we have, a 0, 10, 1. Yeah, I may not do normally a rare feature, but let's just see what happens here. Illusions. So creates an incorporeal, I always have a hard time saying that, image, object, or being equal to its own size within long range. Hard insight roll to discern, dispel if touched. Kind of interesting. Could lure in its prey, kind of. So I'm thinking that those tentacles that it has, maybe there's like little mouths at the end of it, little fangs, you know. And that quill cloud is pretty interesting. Lumbering, so that's probably a giant and like a big, kind of lumbering, tiny, interesting mix. maybe its illusions are that it sounds like this lumbering, huge beast, you know, crashing through the woods, but it's really this tiny little tentacled nocturnal creature with these big eyes and little tiny tentacles with bitey teeth. So I like it. It just needs a name, really. So if you were to turn this creature into like a stronger creature, you know, you might want to up the stat block and then just roll another couple of the rare features that are stronger, you know. So that is an option. Yeah, and like I said, with all the other builders, this is just a starting point. This is to get your juices flowing. But you can really quickly set up a custom monster in no time and have this playable in just a couple minutes, really. So it's really, really handy. And again, if you're new to the game or new to GMing, you may not want to worry about this until you get some plays in and kind of get familiar with the system. So if you're running on the encounter builder, if you roll custom, just, roll again or pick one. So that is pretty much all that I want to cover for the monster builder. I'm going to have other videos that I'm going to be putting out that I think are going to be more GM related. I may go over the Mighty D4 next. We shall see. But I do want to do some GM specific stuff to kind of help GMs out with their games. I think there's some helpful information there in the book. So anywho, thank you so much for joining me and kind of watching this video, watching me work through the monster builder and watching the builders in general, because I think they're just these great little tools to keep in your toolbox. Like I said before, they're understated. You may pass them up like, they're just some tables, but they're really, really helpful. They're going to help your prepping for games super, they do a super job of helping you with prepping. So anyway, I just want to say that, and thank you once again, and hope you're gaming out there, and hope you're all well, and don't forget to roll those dice.